One day, when I was about 12, I woke up to a rough shove, assuming that my sister was waking me up. It was early morning, about 7:30. I groggily stepped out of the bed and was hit with hairspray fumes. I heard the sound of someone taking a shower, as well as loud, hurried footsteps and repetitive spritzes of the hairspray can. I walked to the dresser and pulled out a blouse and a skirt. As I got dressed, I heard knocking on my door. I pulled my top fully on and opened the door. There was no one there. I was kind of freaked out right now, but I knew that it must have been my imagination, as I was about half asleep at the time. I exited the bedroom. I heard the shower shut off as I passed the bathroom, then my father's heavy footsteps. At the end of the hall there was another washroom. I heard repetitive spritzes coming from there and called to my mom, "Hey Mom, I need to pee and Dad's in the other bathroom." I heard my mother's voice, "Alrighty." It was definitely her voice, but alrighty was not something she had ever said. I rolled my eyes and walked away. I figured that I should wake up my granddad as I heard heavy snores coming from the room that he was sharing with my parents. I wondered why my parents hadn't woken him up. When I opened the door, I was scared to see that the room was empty. Just then, the noises and the smell of hairspray stopped. I ran downstairs and saw that my dad, mom, granddad, and sister were already eating breakfast. I checked my watch and saw that it was already 10 o'clock. My mom stared at me. What? I thought. My sister then said, "What the heck?" I asked them what was wrong. My sister then said, "You literally just went into the bathroom," and pointed to the bathroom that is next to the small kitchen area. I walked over there and pressed my ear to the door. Sure enough, someone was there, washing their hands. I shook it off and counted my fingers. 10 of them. I wasn't dreaming. I knocked on the door, and inside the bathroom I heard my own voice calling out, "Alrighty." I looked over at my parents, sister, and granddad, who were all pale. Behind my back I heard the lock click, followed by my own voice saying, "Hey there, Sarah," and footsteps. I turned around just in time to see my own feet, dressed in my black velvet flats, turning the corner on the staircase. I felt paralyzed with fear, and goosebumps crept up my back. I wasn't able to move for about a minute before I told my family all about what had happened a few moments ago. My sister told me that yesterday, when she woke up, I wasn't in my bed, but she heard noises coming from the bathroom. When she went there, she saw me walking down the hall in my pajamas and called out to me, but I kept walking. When she went back to my room, I was still sleeping in my bed. She freaked out and didn't tell anyone. Fast forward to 2 years later. My cousin now has a 6-month-old, and we're talking to each other over tea. I told my cousin about what happened to me and my sister, and she froze. "That happened to you too?" she said. I felt the goosebumps return to my arms and legs. She then told me that she had woken up and walked downstairs when she saw her fiancé sitting at the table, eating cereal. He greeted her, then said he was going to get something from upstairs. It took him some time. Eventually, she felt sort of concerned and went to check on him. He was asleep, still in his pajamas.
The Collector by Reddit user Alex Hicks. The collector had arrived. How did I know? I could smell him. Sulfur. Not to mention I could hear the hounds scratching ever so softly at the door. Regret was the most prominent emotion, with fear a close second. Being a good-looking early-20s man, I thought I'd make the most of the 10 years he had given me. The meager 10 years I had to enjoy the fame, success, and money he had given me, in exchange for the one possession I had since come to realize is more important than any materialistic item anyone could ever have. And now I had lived out my given years, and it was time to pay him what was owed. Was it worth it? Certainly not. I mean, sure, it was great driving the latest cars, dating the most beautiful women, and being on the front covers of numerous magazines. Not to mention dining in multiple foreign countries many times during a week. But now it had come to a very startling and abrupt end. Honestly, I didn't even notice 10 years had flown by. Well, whether or not I had noticed it, my time was up. He was walking up the stairs now, the stairs that led to my bedroom, my sanctuary, my safe room. I didn't feel very safe now. My heart was pounding in my chest so hard it felt as though it could break free from my chest and escape, thus saving itself. But no, we were in this together. The moon shone in brightly through the huge sheets of glass that served as windows to my domain, casting long shadows from the trees outside, shadows that seemed to know my fate and were dancing around my room now in anticipation of the event about to unfold once he reached me. His ascent up the stairs seemed to be taking forever, and the damn hounds of hell stood vigil at my door, scratching, assuring me they were there and ready to tear me apart in the event I foolishly tried to run for it. The shadows continued to dance, and a raven landed by my window and stared in. Was it letting me know it was guarding the window, or was it merely here to watch the collector collect my soul? I lay in bed, clutching my sheets and wondering what exactly was going to befall me once he knocked on my door. It was locked, but would a simple man-made lock withstand a being hailing from hell? I rolled over and opened my bedside drawer. The moonlight shone on my Desert Eagle, illuminating it as though to assure me it was indeed the answer to my current predicament. But should I end myself and put the cold metal barrel to my head, or do my best to keep my nerve and shoot my aggressor once he entered? Rather the latter. It was a long shot that it would work, but honestly, there's not much a dead man can do but hope. I glanced around my room for what might be the last time. The superfluously large television hung on the wall opposite my equally large bed. Beautifully expensive and exotic paintings displayed on every inch of wall space, yet another tribute to my ill-acquired wealth. The Persian rug at the foot of my bed, covering the floor with its splendor. While observing the room, it became evident how still the night had become. No birds chirping, no dogs barking. Not even the slightest hint of wind graced the land at present. The stench of sulfur grew stronger, almost to the point of suffocation. He had arrived at my door. The hounds had stopped scratching. In one last moment of hesitation, I decided to pray. Maybe, just maybe, this God people believed in would be merciful enough to spare me. Clearly, the last-ditch attempt at salvation was futile, as I heard a soft but eerily menacing chuckle from the other side of my door. He did not speak nor knock. He seemed to be relishing in my fear and anticipation of what was to come by standing outside and laughing at me. I wonder what he looked like. Would he look human? What would he use to collect my soul? Would it hurt? What would happen after he did it? Was there any way to perhaps bargain for a few extra years of life, even if reduced to poverty? The chuckling continued as I was trapped in my thoughts, Desert Eagle in hand, still glistening in the moonlight. Why had I done it? Regret once again seeped in as the pure reality of my imminent annihilation hit me fully, as though I had stepped onto a busy highway. Fresh out of college and with not a cent to my name, selling my soul for more money than I could ever spend seemed like a dream come true. I had since come to realize that the dream had now become a nightmare. I had sold my soul for riches and fame, and now neither the money nor the power I had enjoyed would help me now. My soul was no longer mine, and now the time had come for it to be taken. The laughing had stopped. I assumed the time for jokes and mind games had passed, and it was time for business. I stood there in the dark now. Desert Eagle pointed at the door, waiting for him to try and break in. Perhaps I should start shooting before he even tried to enter. I moved closer to the door, intending to end him if possible before he had the slightest chance to get me. I squared up to the door and I pulled the trigger. Nothing. I pulled it again, and again, and again. Not so much as a sound came forth from the machine made to take life. I set the gun down and stood there. Not much else to do now. He did not kick or ram the door. The doorknob simply began to turn. The sulfuric smell was now suffocating, and I could not breathe. The doorknob turned slowly, and once again the brilliance of the moon showed me just how slowly it was turning. The door creaked open, and my heart seemed to stop. There was nothing at the door. A sense of instant relief washed over me. Perhaps he had simply been toying with my mind, and would leave me to live out the rest of my days. My thoughts were violently interrupted when I felt an icy finger run down the side of my face. I could feel his presence behind me. I could taste the sulfur now that he had me in his grasp. My knees trembled, and a cold sweat broke out across my brow. He continued to stroke and caress my cheek as though we had once been lovers. I broke down in tears, and my whole body trembled. How I wanted to turn to get a look at the creature that had opened my door, only to appear behind me. I could not find the strength, nor the courage to face my doom. I grew faint and felt my knees give in, but I did not fall. He was holding me up, supporting me. His face, or whatever he possessed, neared my ear from behind. "It is time to go," he said softly, almost seductively, and off we went, into the darkness.
She walks out of work at midnight, every agonizing step being felt by her swollen feet. Having survived one of the busiest nights at the diner, she daydreams of things-to-do list that has to be tackled tomorrow and the hot bath waiting for her when she gets to her house. Suddenly, she is brought back to reality when she hears footsteps falling behind her. She strains to hear their rhythm, trying to assure herself it's just someone out for an evening stroll, or perhaps just needing to buy something at the corner store. Desperately, she tries to keep her heart from pounding so loud that the whole neighborhood isn't awakened. She picks up her stride and turns the first corner towards home. Convinced her imagination is working overtime until she actually noticed the heavy falling footsteps turn the corner and quicken their pace. She turns sharply, ready to face the unseen stranger, but all she views is an empty sidewalk. Though no one appears to be around, the hair on the back of her neck stands up, warning her of impending danger. She looks around for anything that'll offer her safety, when she sees the local cemetery groundskeeper tending to one of the graves. Quickly she reaches the cemetery's large cast-iron gate and throws it open with a force that even surprises her. Running through the grounds, she is unaware that the footsteps have stopped short, refusing to enter this forbidden darkness of souls. She stumbles on the first mound encountered and scrambles to get up. Finally getting to her feet, she realizes something is preventing her from moving. Looking down, she sees dirt-encrusted hands rising from the bowels of the grave and encircling her ankles. She lets out a blood-curdling scream and fights desperately to get released, but the gnarled hands hang on with an unearthly strength. Kicking as hard as she can, she loses her balance, falls backwards and begins being pulled under the soft soil, down into the eternal darkness, down into the terror that lies beneath. Her fingernails claw at the empty air and she brings them down, where they settle on the handle of a shovel, left behind from work done earlier than the day. She lifts it in the air and comes down hard on the imprisoning hands. The grip loosens for a split second, time enough for her to break free and scramble from their reach. She quickly rises and looks for the groundskeeper, knowing he is her only chance to survive. "Over here," she hears someone yell. "Come over here, I can protect you." The voice beckons her to a lake in the middle of the grounds. Searching the area with her tired eyes, she can't see who summoned her. Then the water starts to stir and a man appears, rising from the water's ripples. She stares at the broken face. One eye, apparently injured in some long-ago accident, is shut, the other taunting her with its evilness. A large wart on his forehead is only overpowered by the scar stretching across his cheek. Out of the corner of her eye, she spots the groundskeeper and tries to break away from the force she finds enveloping her mind. A force so engulfing that it pulls her to the water's edge. She sees the beauty of the rippling water and feels an almost overpowering urge to slip into its unspoken promise of safety. As she is about to enter into the velvety softness of the lake, a cat streaks by behind her, scared by some unheard noise in the night, and breaks her from her trance. She gathers her wits quickly and races off towards the groundskeeper. He's the only one here to help me, she thinks, getting closer to him with every stride. Begging for his help as she runs towards him, she doesn't notice that he seems not to hear. She only knows that a few more footsteps and she can be safe again. A few more steps to someone who will guide her out of this garden of terror. A few more steps and she's on her way home. Just a few more steps. As she reaches him, she feels her burning lungs about to explode. Her air supply exhausted by the marathon gait she never knew she was capable of. Her hands grab at the cape that he wears protection against the cold night air. "Help me, please," she stammers. "I need your help to get out of here." He slowly turns around and her body shudders uncontrollably as she stares into the face of death. The last thing she hears is the unmistakable voice offering his frightful greeting, "Welcome."